Hello, everyone. To Move for a Movement, I have with me here today Zanza Steinberg, a New York-based teaching artist, triple threat. She founded and runs Alma Dance NYC, a company built on love is kind of their main essence, but we'll get deeper into that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Zanza.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course, of course. Yeah, so I often like to start with the mission statement in a sense of like, what is it that your organization, your company, whatever guest does, what is that main foundation? And I mentioned a company built on love, right? So there's that, and that's, I think, a very evocative, it's simple, but evocative in another way. Also, this part of on your website, it's kind of like broken up in the manifesto, this really stuck out to me. We honor the diversity of the human experience for all who walk through our doors, and we encourage everyone to unleash their inner artist. So that with a company built on love, why is that meaningful to you and something that you wanted to base the company on? And I would presume just everything you do out there. Why is that meaningful to you personally and professionally?
Yeah, so I will say, Alma's transitioned over the years, and we're 9 years young or old, however you want to say it. But we've found these core values, and they've kind of distilled over the years. So they have come from the experiences that we've had as an organization. I think all organizations transition, and sometimes that can be viewed as a weakness or something that maybe is like, oh, we're just not quite sure what they do. But we've always been really open to seeing where the company goes based on the needs of the communities around us and the work that we're creating. So in terms of the honoring the diversity of the human experience, I think, we've worked with diverse populations and trying to access their creativity and maybe movement abandonment, through raising their self-esteem and offering kind of workshops with the company. And I think in terms of a quote unquote classroom setting, like a traditional experience, dance is very strict, and it can feel so inaccessible for populations that are not there to train professionally. But everything that you can learn from an experience with movement or creativity, or even just learning some basic dance steps, that they're transcendent. That shouldn't be I think it should be accessible to all, but what that means is we have to kind of change the idea of what a class or a masterclass or even just an experience within dance looks like. And so that's kind of where that came from. And I was trying to figure out a way to really distill what I mean. And we take that to the classrooms or the spaces that we visit for the populations around our community here in New York in the 5 boroughs. But it also exists within our audience members. So, I mean, I think a maybe good example of that is when we have sensory friendly performances, or even just our performances in general, which are open to everybody. When you have a neurodiverse population in the audience, we're not trying to ask them to be silent and adhere to these like kind of structures that exist for a traditional theater experience, where there shouldn't be, crinkly crisp packets or anyone vocalizing at any time. And I understand where that comes from, but it doesn't feel inclusive for many populations. Oh, just my dog in the background.
Everyone, she's a cutie.
She likes to be part of everything that's going on. So so I mean, to try and kind of summarize that and make it part of our mission, it's maybe, it's the quickest way to kind of get to where I'm going. But if we break it down, we mean it in so many facets. So the diversity of the human experience is like extremely honored with everything that we do. Everyone learns differently, everyone processes differently. And if we want to be actively accessible to all, then that's something that we need to consider, rather than saying, our doors are open. We want to ask how we can actively engage populations that maybe otherwise would feel like this space isn't for them.
Mm. Yeah, those two levels of like the doors are open versus when you get there, it's something that is inherently welcoming. And I'm thinking back to Yellow of, there was that announcement in the beginning of we believe this is a space for everyone. Um, and we honor however you experience it. Something to that effect is said. And there are also so many sort of sensory outlets, as typical, there's the movement, music, and a concert, dance performance, but there's also projections and cartoons, and there were many ways into what was being presented, which I think is really special and aligns with what you're saying really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, love it, love it. Yeah, you spoke about how Alma is 9 years young or old, so however you want to say it. How did the company come to be? What led you to create it?
This is such a hard question. And it's like obviously the question that I guess get asked all the time. I really feel like I've landed on the idea that like Alma found me, because I resisted for a very, very long time to be in any type of leadership role or even creative role, to be honest. Like I remember in college, like even just a friend passively being like, gosh, you're going to be a choreographer one day. And I was so offended because, I wanted to be a dancer, and I wanted to be the person that would bring somebody else's vision to life. So it's funny, Alma came about essentially during a season where myself and a few of my dance colleagues found ourselves in a place where audition season was over. There was not going to be any more auditions for a few months, and we didn't want to just sit and wait. And sometimes we really feel like we're at the mercy of waiting for the next opportunity. And, so essentially I booked a space and we started playing with movement, and it kind of, more and more people were hearing about this space where you could just come, and I was teaching choreography, and who knows if it was any good. I can't even remember. I was so nervous, but, it was fun to create something expressive and feel like we were working, even if we didn't have a specific goal. And yeah, like I said, more and more people heard about it. It turned into something a little bit bigger. And my friend, who's the co-founder of Alma, Stephanie Brooks, she was kind of like my springboard for everything, because I was like, again, did not feel very confident in being in this role that just happened. And so, eventually at some point she was like, I'm happy to always be here for you, just to run ideas by. But at this point, like, do you want to do it together? Basically was happening that way anyway. I was like, yes. So I think even in her just asking me that question, I was like, okay, so this is a thing and we are doing it together. And so now we have to be intentional about it. And it's not just going to be this, like, we're having a nice time and exploring movement. And so that's when we sat down and we found the name Alma, and we then started talking about what we wanted to do with a group of dancers or artists in New York City, and not just have it be a passive, good time. And what we came to agree on is that while dance and the pursuit of a career in dance and movement is really high on people's priority lists, we knew that for us specifically, volunteering and engaging with things outside of that world was really important to feed our artistry and what we could bring to an audition, to a creative process, to the stage. And so that's something we implemented pretty quickly. And again, like, our outreach component of Alma has really transitioned. We were very lucky to have learnt from big organizations like A-Step and Sing for Hope at first. And we took it really, really slowly before we developed our own in-house programming, because we knew that there are people in New York City doing it better than us that had more experience than us and were already engaged with populations that we would not have been able to access without working with them. So we worked in a collaborative form for many years with these big organizations doing really incredible work. And so we kind of feel like we learned from the best. So that's kind the trajectory of how Alma came to be. But I wish I could sit here and tell you that it came to me one day and it was this vision that I really, stood by, but it really has just shaped and molded based on who's been in the room with us over 9 years and the things that we've learned from just being, active members of our community, I guess.
I love it. So no movie moment and then Mary Poppins spinning in Central Park.
No aha moment. Yeah, no, sadly. I wouldn't be genuine in telling you that happened. So yeah, we've been intentional since we kind of sat down and realized it was something, but it did feel like it just happened and it became almost bigger than maybe I wanted it to be at the time.
Sometimes that's what intention looks like, I think, just kind of evolves over time. And then at one point you're like, we're 9 years old and look what this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good segue in what you were just talking about. You referenced it before as well, different populations you engage and you work with, especially this summer, at least from what I've seen being more involved more lately, doing amazing community and social justice-based work. For example, summer class series, you had Darkness Rising, and which you also teach for Kaiser's Room, and a bunch of different organizations doing amazing work out there based in dance and the arts. Why is that important to you? You sort of discussed that, but if you go a little deeper in terms of what the company does and the mission, how does that amplify the mission of Alma, that work?
I think we talk a lot about supporting our community in general, and a lot of times what we think that looks like, or it does end up looking like, is going into communities with low access and bringing them something we feel is important.
Right.
As simple as that. But our community, additionally, we have organizations that live in kind of the same umbrella community as Alma, that are in a position where they needed help over the summer as well. And so for me, it was kind of expanding the idea of what serving communities looks like, and it doesn't always have to be an in-house program. And to be frank, of course, it stemmed from the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the murder of George Floyd. And we just sat there and we were like, what can we do? And I think sometimes being a good ally means going, we can't do anything. But there's an organization that can do something and is doing something and was built, created, and is moving for this specific thing. And so how can we uplift them? And so that's, that was kind of our first week was with Darkness Rising, and just, humbling ourselves to be like, we can't help, but let's ask Carlita what we can do for their organization that is actively helping and has been helping. And, I think after that week, we were like, there's other organizations that are working through some stuff right now and could use some amplification and some support as well. And that's where, we kind of wanted to do it for the summer and partner with organizations that were doing great work and also weren't sure what their capabilities were in this new COVID world where connection is so limited and connection is so important to so many missions. And so I think that's what it was. It's obviously important because we've always talked about serving our community, but I think what was nice about this summer was taking a moment to be like, gosh, there's not a lot we can do right now. And there's a lot of populations that really need help. So what if we uplifted organizations that are doing really specific work that could use a little boost right now? And really little, because we're well aware that we're limited in what we can offer, but we know what we can, and we do it willingly. So yeah, I don't know. It's not, these are just small little steps, but I think knowing what that would mean for me, for another organization to go, hey, we believe in what you're doing. We know you're doing your own thing, but how can we help you? That feels like such a big thing during this time where we feel so isolated and without support. So, I'm aware it's not a huge boost for them, but it's something. And, I'd like to think that we know when to rest, but we really don't. um, we don't at all. We typically take 2 months off in the summer to just regroup. That's when Alma breaks, is July and August, and our new fiscal starts in September. And for years I wasn't taking a break at all, and what ultimately happened was the work was getting stale and we didn't have a time to reset and come back and be excited. So we started taking the 2 months off, and so we were right in the middle of those 2 months where I feel like everyone really needed the break, and we were like, there's no break to be had. So it's very classic. We don't know when to stop. But yeah, so I think, that's kind of how it came to be in the summer. And I will say that was the first time we'd done, just kind of like a weekly partnership in that capacity. But it was, it's an example of needing to reconfigure what's possible in this world and how to do it quickly and effectively. And so that's what came from it.
Yeah, I love that idea you're saying. Sometimes allyship it's always a tough balance, right? If you're coming from a position of privilege, you want to do something and you want to uplift voices, but how do you not do that without centering yourself so much? And I think Alma did that really well, of like, we're holding these classes and it's a space for everyone to come and dance, and we're bringing awareness and frankly much needed funds, right, to these organizations doing wonderful work. So I love the way you put that. And also this idea of the movement for justice has so many layers, right? There's a place for artists, and there's a place for people out there in the streets, and these organizations going into prisons and offering theater and dance, like Shining Light does. It's another one you partnered with, and offering classes for young girls so they don't join gangs, like Groove With Me, which is an organization I absolutely love.
Yeah, they're so fantastic.
I love all that. So sort of more back to the concert dance side. I love the different focuses that you have with your work. And for instance, there's Yellow, which is this really interesting idea of the ecological biosphere, but also the human biosphere and the way that we relate to each other. We referenced that before about the ways it's inclusive and accessible and how that all came together. And then there's something, for example, like Homage, which is very much about jazz dance, and this homage to how this art form developed and giving credence to Black creators, and how the importance of groove and all that wonderful stuff. But at the center, as we've discussed, this idea of connection and community, and really the best of the human spirit, to be cliche, our better angels. So I'm curious about how that interests you, how that comes together, and really what are some of your favorite moments from all that, and what are some of your favorite works in all those different things you've done?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think
that might be tough. You can also just say like favorite memories.
No, I'll try to answer the question. I mean, I think it's tough to pinpoint favorite moments, because I just love all stages of the creative process in general. I think that some of my favorite studio moments with my company have yet to be staged. I think some of the more exciting pieces I've been like, gosh, I don't know yet where this lives. And I think, I actually don't know what other creative processes look like. But ours definitely is, I will play and play and play, and then something will come to me, and then we'll call back something we did 3 months ago, and I think it might work for this. And so you know, the movement that exists for Alma has a lot of it, you know, was birthed, I don't know, 6 years ago in a studio at Regrouping or something, wherever we were at the time.
Right.
And so it's interesting that, you know, we have these moments where we perform complete works, and it's kind of the showcase of the final product of an idea. But it didn't start on like the first day of rehearsal, you know. And I think my favorite part of working with the company that I have, and they're all just so ready to show up for anything that day, because they just know it's whatever sparked, you know, my interest that day, or something that even happened. I was like, I had this plan, but I got on the subway and then it all changed. And so I don't have any movement, but I have an idea, and gosh, bless them. Because I've really never had like even an ounce of an eye roll, which I would be eye rolling at myself 100%. But they really just kind of allow me to play with what I'm passionate about in that exact moment. And then from that, we just have we have so much stock almost of interesting moments in time where we worked on a phrase, and maybe it's not even out in the world yet, but a lot of what you saw in Yellow, and a lot of the movement that lived in Homage, firstly was called back from other performances for sure. I try and always put a little nod to maybe a really identifiable moment from another show. I don't know, it's just fun for me, from a previous show that we've done. But really, like, phrases of movement can have been, you know, created on, I don't know, the third rehearsal we ever had, because for some it's really wild, but I have everything is like stored in the body somehow, for me, and I really remember absolutely everything. And I think there are times I'm like, remember we did this, and I think we went here, and then this came around, and my dancers will be like, no, we don't remember, and that's, you know, absurd. We're gonna have to teach it again. But it's like all in here, and so it comes back up at different times. So I think, you know, in terms of top moments, I just love being in a space with humans that are like absurdly talented, so quick to pick up whatever mumbo jumbo I've just spewed at them, which doesn't count or shapes. And then we focus on a concept or an idea or a feeling, and it's just so exciting to see it grow. And I don't think I would be able to choose a singular, you know, performance that that felt, you know, any more exciting than any other one, because the process has always kind of been the same. Yeah.
Gotta love that rehearsal process. There's just something about it. Bodies in a room. We'll get back there someday, soon. I love it. Yeah, you also, you wear many hats, right? You do media by Z, you do media for performing artists. And you're a teaching artist, as we referenced, and you do it with a lot of joy and grace, from what I can see. And you know, all these details floating around, as freelancers know, right? What nuggets of wisdom might you have for other creatives struggling to balance that all? What helps you to keep it all straight?
Well, I don't know if I have so many nuggets of wisdom, but at least for me, everything that I do feeds into the other thing. I don't run Alma as well if I'm not, you know, a teaching artist for public schools in the Bronx. I just am not. And I'm not as good of a content creator if I am not looking at it myself from the standpoint of running my own business. So I think I feel like it all comes together, and that's, you know, I try and make decisions about when, because it is tricky to add anything else to the plate, because there's a lot going on. But you know, I recently enrolled in a class in Love as a Force for Social Justice, so I'm taking this course right now, and I was like, it is going to, yes, it's another thing on my plate, and yes, this is a stressful time, and yes, there's a lot going on, but it's going to reinforce every area of my life as the full person that I want to be. And so I think that, you know, there's things to consider for sure, and you have to do what's best for you, and you have to have the wisdom to know when to rest. But I think in terms of holding it all together, it's useful to not think of all of these areas as separate, but they feed each other. And I'm always trying to become a more understanding, empathetic human being, not just artist or teacher or director. And so, you know, the decisions I make and the actions that I take are rooted in pursuit of that.
I love it. Yeah, there's also this idea, and I can understand how for some people it might be helpful of like, I need to compartmentalize, like this area of my life, and but what you're saying about feeding into each other really resonates with me. You know, the skill I learned here, the idea.
Sorry to interrupt. I just, you know, I think it's also smart to know, okay, this has to be a season where I'm focused on stability or whatever. You know, there's no absence of that when New York is, you know, the beast that she is, and we're trying to just exist. So, you know, there is that too. It's totally a balance, but in terms of not feeling overwhelmed, that's kind of where I live, I'd say 90% of the time.
Yeah. And I was thinking before, and then you said something else that, you know, sparked another thought. That, you know, dance companies, you know, to be cliche, like dime a dozen, right? It's like, especially in New York, this like home of dance in the world, you might say. So many companies, and it's like, what sets you apart? Well, Alma is built on love, and that's visible at every level of the organization, and what you do and what you are. And I can see that the uniqueness of what you do, just as you're speaking, and from what I've seen Alma do. So that's a guiding question maybe for people who are like, how do I balance it all? What am I doing? Where am I going? Well, what sets you apart?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, you know, what's useful in the way that Alma's refined is, you know, we've had to have this mission statement, which has, it stayed pretty consistent. There have been a couple of, or is it artists in general? Is it dancers? You know, like there's been a couple of things that we've refined or gone back and forth on, but we have a mission statement that we adhere to, and we have core values. And I think if you can find those for yourself and sit down and maybe treat your human self as a business, I think that's a helpful guiding light too. It's not to be restrictive, and if it does become restrictive, then reevaluate. But it's really helped me during this time where it's just kind of felt like the world's been on fire for 9 months, to just return to my personal mission statement, my core values, and see if they, you know, what my focus is going to be this season. It's okay if it's not 100% aligned in those things for now, but it's intentional rather than feeling like I'm being run by the circumstances around me.
Right. Another good segue. I was going to ask next about how, you know, what's giving you light in this time through COVID. And we've circled around it a bit of what the company's been doing through COVID. But yeah, with the world on fire, what has kept you smiling, kept you creative, fed your creative light?
It's been really small stuff. It's been the really, really small things that I've had to really focus on. I think it's actually, maybe they've been even more accessible to us, those small moments, than they would have if we, you know, life would have resumed as normal, and we were running around New York navigating all of the things. So, you know, it's just been really small things. It's been quiet times. It's been the ability to have space to reconnect with people. And it's almost this, what's interesting to me is the desire for connection is so high now. And I used to just I could have gone the same amount of time, right? I could have gone 5 months without reaching out to a particular friend, but that feels like such a long amount of time when we feel like it's because we can't physically see each other. So there's a barrier there versus time has just passed and I haven't connected with this person, and that's okay because we're both busy. And so I think that, you know, that's another thing that I've noticed is gosh, why does it feel like it's such a big thing now when maybe I wouldn't have spoken to that person over 5 months out of being busy? And so I don't know, just in terms of keeping joy, it's just really, really loving my coffee, really loving that I'm sitting down and having my coffee in the morning, really loving that I have 45 minutes to just walk in the park, and not focusing on the restrictions, but focusing on the freedoms that exist. And I will say, you know, I'm very careful to not preach kind of like toxic positivity, because like it's 100, like stuff is shit sometimes, like it really is.
Yep.
And it's just really okay if you're having a shit day, and it's really okay if you feel trapped for a day or a couple of days. And so I want to say that too. It's like, you know, I've been balancing that too of just being like, I have to be really thankful for my coffee and for my dog, which I am very thankful for both. But it's also okay if stuff is hard and we feel overwhelmed. And so I do think even finding those moments where I'm allowing myself to be really, really frustrated by the state of the world, I'm grateful, and that makes me happy to have the space to do that, because, you know, in a past, well, I wouldn't even say in a past life, I would just say if we hadn't had the restrictions of COVID, I would be like, do you know what, Zanz? You need to go and take a dance class right now, or whatever it is. And it's like, we're totally masking, you know, our emotions and our feelings that need to come out. And so it's got to be a balance. And I think, you know, I love counting things that I'm thankful for and grateful for. I think it's, you know, a worthwhile exercise to do daily. But I also want to encourage anyone who might need to be reaffirmed in the fact that, like, sometimes it just sucks. That's fine.
Yeah. And being truthful to whatever that is for you. And emotions are a process, right? Just like art is a process. Right?
Yeah.
You can't go choreography done, right? You can't go emotion past. Yeah.
100%. And then, you know, like, truly as artists, it's a really interesting, like, you could be your own character study at the moment, and we don't experience the highs without the lows. And that means, you know, I wonder if when, you know, we reemerge, we'll have this new depth of understanding about our own human emotions and where we go with them, and then how we can physicalize them and express them in the world of dance. So it is really important to honor those things, I think.
What can be fruitful out of this thing that feels shitty, as you're saying.
I don't know if I was allowed to swear, but it's a miracle I've made it this far.
All good. I was marked not for kids, because I don't know how long kids would stick through, but yeah, you spoke about how Alma didn't really rest because, you know, there were the protests and George Floyd, and you're like, what can we do? And you ended up doing these class series. Do you feel like it was still a time to regroup in a certain way, creatively and in your own mind, just because those 45 minutes you might have had to go out and walk in the park? Do you think that existed for you in some kind of form, creatively or otherwise?
For Alma or for Zanza?
Both, I guess. Or however
I feel like Alma, I feel like my responsibility of you know, the artistic director of this company, and, you know, the driving force right now is to reevaluate almost every single day. So I don't feel like it would have been super helpful if I'd taken 3 weeks off to reevaluate, because those needs will have changed between September and now, or whenever I took that time. So, you know, my short answer is no, I don't think I gave myself that time, but I do know that this we're getting new information every single day. The needs of my company members change every single day. And I would not be a good director if I was making choices not considering the well-being of the heartbeat of the organization, which are the dancers. And so, you know, that's just going to be an ongoing process, I think, for anybody that's trying to keep anything afloat or run anything right now, creatively or otherwise. And I think it's probably the same for me. I think every single day changes, and it's probably going to be that way for a while. I was thinking, you know, if someone in March told me this is where I'd be in December, I'd be like, no way, I'm out. Count me out. I'm not going to do it. But sometimes when we don't have the information, it can actually keep us going, because we're just, you know, open and aware every single day, and we shift as needed. And yeah, sometimes, you know, we're really exhausted from that process. But I almost think if I'd had all this information up front, I would be so overwhelmed with knowing how to show up for these circumstances. So I think the moments of reflection and evaluation are almost a daily activity. And sometimes they're really deep, and sometimes I just think about it. I'm like, I don't know, I'll think about it tomorrow.
It's where you are, right? And just like the emotion and the creative process, it's something to be honored. Yeah. Sure. And that's interesting. These kind of models of reflection and reevaluation, like we're taking this period versus it's just an ongoing thing almost. And like kind of the playbook in that way of how dance as a field and dance companies run is like, we have our season planned out year and a half before, and that's not happening right now because it can't, right? So I think in productive ways, companies that like that playbook, that rule book by which that is built over the years as concert dance has evolved, you know, maybe that will change. Maybe we'll make meaningful edits that will really make a difference.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all uncertain, but
that's right.
Yeah. So to wrap up, this has been wonderful. What can audience members look forward to, follow, support with what Alma and Zanza have coming up?
Yeah, well, our world is unknown. You know, we are looking to host a 10-year celebration in November of 2021. That's when we'll be 10, and by whatever means we celebrate, we'll absolutely be celebrating that milestone and all of the selfless people that got us to 10. So that's on the books. Where it'll be, how it'll be, who knows? But you can follow, you know, all of Alma's, you know, Alma's journey in general through all of our social media platforms. We're super active on Instagram, and that's kind of where we post what's coming up next. And I will say that if you aren't familiar with Alma and you're diving in, this is an exciting time because we're not following a typical structure. Like we discussed earlier, you know, we kind of dove in the summer and we're like, we're doing this thing now and you can be part of it if you want, and it's open door. And so I would say keep an eye out. We're always looking to see how we can be more engaged with everybody, especially with our New York communities. So we'll see. I don't have any specific details, but you know, it's all good stuff. And I so wholeheartedly believe in the people that make Alma what it is. And it's not, I think it's important to remember that organizations are ran by people that have real emotions and feelings and goals and dreams, and that's what makes the organization what it is, and it gives it its personality. And so I know that we're gonna keep going strong in whatever the next season is.
And some of the dancers that I know personally, just wonderful people, like you're referencing before, just wonderful artists and just beautiful humans. So everyone, if you get a chance to know them, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah. So if you have any last thoughts you want to lead us out with, go ahead.
Gosh, I'm like not one for the inspirational closings. I just want to send a whole lot of love out there to anyone that listens. You know, these are really tough times, regardless of your circumstances. And I want to reaffirm you, particularly if you're an artist during this time. You know, just keep going, honor your emotions. If Alma can ever be there for you, or if I can ever be there for you, please reach out. And just know that you're not alone. There's just such a large, big-hearted community out there that you have access to. And you know, reach out to a friend during this season. There's a lot of people who are going to be isolated during the holidays. So, you know, if you want a project, reach out to one friend in the next couple of weeks, see how they're doing.
Love it. A little challenge there. All right. Thank you so much, Zanza, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please like, subscribe, share with a friend you think would enjoy this, would resonate with, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Yay.